Hi everybody, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Hallmark Plus More, where we watch and talk about shows, movies, mysteries, Hallmark ornaments, and anything else that floats our boat. So today we're going to be reviewing NCIS Origins. Season 1, Episode 6 airs on CBS, starring a young Leroy Jethro Gibbs, Austin Stillwell. So if you're just joining me, thank you. Welcome back. We just kind of watched the episode together. Wanted to see what you guys thought. This was Gibbs' first undercover mission with Layla. So we heard a lot about Layla in this episode, right? And I kind of mentioned it if you've seen my other videos where Gibbs was saying, I'm not telling my story, I'm telling her story. So it kind of throws us for a loop because NCIS Origins is supposed to be how Gibbs started out. And I like that it's narrated by Mark Harmon. So definitely love that. Love the NCIS original, Mark Harmon as the older Gibbs. So I love that they do that. But this episode was really the story of Layla. We're really kind of seeing Gibbs almost as a kind of a supporting secondary character. I feel like this episode was really kind of all about Layla. So a little bit of her personal life, her boyfriend's moving in. But all of this talk at work, the sexism, it's really starting to get to her. And I've spoken about that in the past. I mean, we know that's Frank's character. Even in the regular NCIS, before his character passed. Still very sexist. There's that one episode where he's like, there's a woman director. What's wrong? What's gotten into NCIS? So even as an older Franks, he still has that, sexist kind of ego attitude. So you can definitely see it more because, back in the day, unfortunately, very unfortunately, it was very commonplace to degrade and talk down to women. I mean, you heard them in the locker room and they have this big locker room and then the women, they just have a curtain and they have like 4 lockers. They have this little itty bitty space to separate them, and the way they just talk openly about it at the crime scene, in the locker room. It's just very commonplace to basically degrade women. And I understand when you're undercover, you're playing a role, right? So Layla was, pretending to be drunk and intoxicated and, just to move around the room and kind of be that zero threat. You saw when she made herself a drink, there, was a knife there and she just kind of took that because nobody's really paying attention to her. I mean, they're looking at her. But she played that role very well. However, even though she played that role well, it still hit her, right? She still knew she had to play that part. And then kind of like what Vera said, you can't be in a box at work and be in a box at home. Something's got to give. You got to be comfortable in your own skin somewhere, right? So she's going home. I'm glad she's being open and telling her boyfriend. You don't want to, start off a new chapter of your relationship, like moving in together on a lie. So I like that she's like, hey, last night at the club, and, it kind of stopped the episode, but she's going to tell him. For all purposes, from what we see from this boyfriend, he seems like a really nice guy. So, I mean, obviously, we don't know if he's got a temper or a bad side, but I hope she can stay with him because I feel like she needs to be out of the box at home since obviously the work life isn't going to change. That sexism, that degrading of women, that's going to be the same. Wheeler and Gibbs, Wheeler and Franks are in this boys club, and she's seeing that, and there's nothing you can really do about it. So I hope her personal life gets better with this live-in boyfriend who seems really nice. But you don't know, maybe he'll leave. Maybe he'll decide, that he can't move past this. So we're going to see a little bit more. But I feel like this episode really went into detail on Layla's life, her personal life, her work life, and kind of her support system, right? Because we all have to have some kind of a support system. So I don't think it was a bad episode. Like I said, I loved that we were seeing his first undercover mission. He seemed confident. I know I was saying that before, like, hey, the guy he's portraying is, selling intel to the highest bidder. He's gonna be a confident, egotistical person, and Gibbs has to come in not being nervous. I feel like he did that. Obviously, he slipped up a little bit trying to look at it, and it wasn't on. The guy was like, hey, you gotta turn it on first. And I was like, oh no, don't let that like showcase that, right? That he's not the real person. And then Layla saying congratulations over and over again and them not coming. So I think that's when she was like, all right, we gotta take this on ourselves because they're getting really close to counting the money. But it turned out okay in the end. Now you see when Franks came in, Gibbs, even when Franks entered the room and they should, kind of let their guard down, like, hey, your backup is here. Gibbs was still, kind of pushing that in. You could see the blood, like something came over Gibbs, and Franks had to actually say, like, it's okay, I'm here, like, put it down. So I feel like that was some kind of emotion that I feel like we're going to talk about next week in the episode. His emotions on what he felt, because I feel like there was just kind of this music where it was like he was frozen in time almost. And I'd like to see what Layla thought of how Gibbs did on the mission, right? Because they had that altercation with the two guys in the car who were speaking Spanish, and Layla was talking back to him. Gibbs didn't know what they were saying. But I like what Layla said there. Like, hey, if it was Randy or Franks, would you have done that? You were defending me as a woman, but I was communicating with them. I was speaking Spanish. They were speaking Spanish. They weren't a threat. They were, So I think she made really good points, and I think Gibbs is kind of trying to soak all that in. And even though Gibbs is trying to kind of separate himself from the sexist of Franks and Wheeler and the other guys in the team, Layla's still like, okay, so you gave me a bowl of cereal, like, am I supposed to just think you're different from that one gesture? So I think that stuck with Gibbs too. Like, hey, if I'm going to show her I'm different, I need to either stand up for her or do something. But I like the way Layla was like, look, you don't have to defend me in front of Franks. Like, she knows this is her work environment. But what Vera said, you have to have some kind of balance. So, she can't be in a box at home either. So I like that she's kind of coming clean with her and live-in boyfriend, and we'll see how that goes. But great episode. Like I said, this was really more a Layla episode, even though I like to see Gibbs his first undercover job. It feels like the show is really going towards let's tell Layla's story and Gibbs is just narrating. So, I know I'm just one person, CBS, but if you're listening, you promoted the show as Gibbs' show. So I love Layla. I think she's a great actress. I think she does great. But you told us this was a Gibbs show. Let's make sure we're focusing on Gibbs' future and Gibbs', emotions. I like that we see Randy and Layla and Franks. But I feel like the show is going into a Layla show. And that's not really what you told the fans. So hopefully next week, we're going to get more into let's talk about Gibbs and his emotions. I'm hoping they're going to focus more on Gibbs since that's what we all kind of came to the show to watch. But thank you so much for watching and discussing and doing the review with me for the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for everybody that watches my videos and subscribes. And until 2 weeks, new episode is in 2 weeks. Until then, I hope you have a great day. Bye.